And the winner is...
And the winner is...
And the winner is...
Miss Natalie Imbruglia.
Natalie Imbruglia.
Natalie Imbruglia.
Natalie Imbruglia.
On the soundtrack of people's life, it's fair to say that for a lot of people around the world, Natalie Imbruglia has a song that is locked in. In the late 90s, her mega hit Torn and her album Left of the Middle took the world by storm. It won countless awards, it broke records, it was sung on every road trip for about a decade, and it made Natalie Imbruglia's name and face known around the world. That song and album alone are iconic. But to me, this is where Natalie gets even more impressive, because she's a trailblazer. Listen to this. Before music, at the age of 16, she starred in a soap opera. Then, still as a teenager, she leaves the show, moves from Australia to the UK, and breaks into music as an extraordinary success. And as if that's not enough, she then returns to acting and stars in movies that are box office hits. And now with the release of her new album, Firebird, that's out everywhere, Natalie Imbruglia is firmly back in music. So let's get into it. So many of our audience members, one of the questions we get all the time is just how do you get started? What would be your advice to someone who's in that spot? Maybe a small opportunity didn't work out, unsure about themselves. What's your advice to them getting started?
I think you make your own opportunities. There's always a way in. I mean, I was from this tiny little town and I could have been like, there's no hope for me. I was doing talent shows in the local shopping mall, like whatever. I would have sung anywhere or taken any opportunity. I think that you have to be hungry and you have to reach out. And my mum wouldn't let me get an acting agent, so I got on a train and went to Sydney and got one myself. So you have to have that tenacity. But first and foremost, you have to believe in yourself, because if you don't have that fire, nobody else is going to believe in you or buy into that either. And it's a difficult industry, so you have to also have a very thick skin. You have to be prepared for rejection. This is why I always quote this book, Surrender Experiment, because I think it's a really good one for viewing things that seem as seemingly disasters. And we all go through periods where these kind of things happen as opportunities. Like, okay, why would this be happening? What's on the other side of this? Instead of seeing it, I mean, I had writer's block. I'm a singer for more than 5 years. And for a while that swallowed me up. And I hid behind that and I did other things and I found ways around it. But then when I hit it head on and I found a way through it, I've written the best album of my career, in my opinion. I've had the most fun. I've been in flow. It's like I can do no wrong. And I think a lot of what changed for me was how I felt about myself, the willingness to fail, the willingness to apply a discipline with something that you could say, oh, it's just creativity. And it's like, well, there's still a discipline. You have to show up. You have to be willing to write some bad songs to get the good song. And that's the part that the ego can't handle. That's the part where you're like, ah. So I cried a lot. We laughed at some of the bad songs, my managers and I. You just don't give up. Just don't give up.
I wonder too about the pressure. I mean, you had a song early in your career that was just, I mean, it's iconic, extraordinary success. What was that like for you, having one of your early songs take off in that way?
I was doing a lot of spiritual practice at that time of my life. Before that first album came out, I'd met a meditation master. So I had a lot of tools, you could say, and my perspective on who I am and what's important, being that I was famous young, and then, dove deep into this Eastern philosophy and spirituality and meditation. So I had these really good tools for becoming mega famous again overnight with this song, which was, this is not me. I'm not what I do. And, what are you going to do with this experience? Keep your feet planted on the ground. And I used those tools to be able to cope with that. And it's transient. I mean, I'd been famous and then not famous. And so once you go through the rhythm of that, you have no attachment to that. You don't define that as meaning anything other than a result of being on camera a little bit more frequently. So I don't place any importance on those things. And I was able to value the good parts of it and certainly handle the fact that everybody had an expectation of me after that first album. to live up to that. And that I found really hard. That's probably the hardest part, was not, the celebration of Torn connecting with everyone around the world, and my first album doing so well and winning awards. And I mean, that was fantastic. And I made a promise to enjoy it and savor it in case that was the peak. But it was then writing the second album, and that was the challenge for me. And that's where those tools came into play. So I consider completing that album as one of my greatest achievements under that kind of pressure, I would say.
And I feel like that raw emotion, it does come through. I want to get the quote right, just because you've been quite open about some of the periods you went through where you were working through different emotions. And I think it was during that time where you were putting out hit movies and hit albums, and you said during that period, for a part, I was successful, rich, and terribly unhappy. Can you tell us about the emotion you were feeling when you would have said a quote like that?
I can't even remember when I said that, but I think it's true to say there have been the periods of my life where I've been the most successful and I've had more money than I have now, and I have been unhappy. I think something I've learned is the more you have doesn't mean, the happier you are, or it just more things mean more problems and more things to manage. It's easy to sit there and kind of tell somebody else about that when they haven't had the chance to experience that. All I know is that because I've been blessed to have some of those opportunities, the gift of that is I don't need those things. And living simply, there's a lot to be said for it, because it frees up a lot of space to do things that do make you happy.
When I was looking into your story, the word that kind of kept coming back to me was fearless. Like, just, it felt like you, every time things were working well, you were willing to move on to the next thing. So from the outside perspective, that's the impression I'm getting. But then you also talk about having writer's block and running into real roadblocks with confidence creatively. What were you experiencing during that time?
That was really hard. And I think it was because I got dropped by a label, an album got shelved. I never really understood why, or it was never explained to me. Sometimes you just think the universe is trying to tell you something. You're working really hard and it's just not working. It's just not working. So it's not about quitting. It's about realizing that you don't know. It's okay to not know. And it's okay to need some time out. It's okay that I went to Currumbin Creek in the Gold Coast of Australia and stand-up paddled, and that was my healing, and that was my, what do I need to do to take care of myself? And then sometimes, there's a flow happening, and whether it's to do with you or outside forces where things are just easy, like this Firebird album, the process of it feels easy, but if I look back, there were all these things that fell into place, for that to happen, choices that I made, struggles that I went through, decisions I had to make about roads less traveled. And then there was flow. So which one is it? I think it's just an interesting topic as, what comes first.
I think this is the mental kind of tension or struggle that people get into where, it feels like this is right, but right's not working yet. And then what do I do? Did I choose the wrong right? Do I need to change? What's the answer there? And there's probably all sorts of chatter from other people, and you're in this space where you're trying to believe in your heart, but you're also trying to listen to your head, and you're listening to other people, and it's really hard to stay the course. And you also spoke a little about just the discipline of recognizing that there's a discipline to work through this stuff. What did your day actually look like when you were trying to work through from the lowest moments? What was the discipline to help you build back that creative confidence?
Just the act of scheduling things in that you have to show up for. I tried a lot of different kinds of things to get myself able to walk into the room. Mine was that bad. I tried a lot of different modalities just to kind of not be terrified to kind of turn up to a writing session. All of which were tools to just kind of trick my brain and get myself in the room. But more than anything, I think going to Nashville and booking 10 days straight songwriting, which was like 2 sessions a day, I was aware of the intensity of songwriting there. And I just had this intuitive feeling that if I went there, it was going to help me overcome my writer's block. And that's what I did. So I just songwrote, with a bunch of people some that I'd met before, some I was meeting for the first time. It was hard because at the beginning of that, I was just going along with everyone else's ideas and going, yeah, that sounds great. And it's nothing I would say, wasn't me. And then I'd wonder why I didn't like the song, or I'd be crying. I'm like, oh, this is so not me. But finishing off the day, not speaking up. So a lot of it was also learning if I don't have the courage to say, well, I wouldn't actually say that. That's not who I am. Then I'm not going to be happy with the song, because they're trying to help me. And if there's no me in the room, then how are they going to help me write the song? So I think some of what I learned was the courage to just take control of the narrative and shut things down if it doesn't feel like it's me. And that's okay. That doesn't mean, you don't want to offend people. And in a creative room, you have to be really careful. But my experience has been that collaborators love it if you're like, that's not me. So what is you? And you're like, that's me. And that's a really helpful, useful thing in a writing session. So it's welcome. I guess I'd just forgotten how to do it.
Natalie, what's the legacy you hope to leave behind?
Oh my goodness. That's just such a big word. Legacy. I don't know. I mean, I'd like just to be known for someone who was wholly who they are and, honest in their truth about it through my art, I could say. That'd be nice.